Jungkook's name is back in the center of attention, not because of his extraordinary global achievements, but because of the striking change in attitude in front of the public. The figure that has been known to be warm, open, and full of energy now looks quieter, more closed, even seems to avoid the camera's spotlight. The fans who have followed their long journey with BTS begin to feel something different, something unusual, something that triggers a big question. What is really going on? In the last few occasions, Jungkook has been seen reducing interaction with the media. His gaze was no longer as bright as when he saw the camera. His smile, even though it was still there, felt thinner and shorter. Even in a moment that should be full of euphoria, he is actually seen keeping his distance, as if there is an invisible limit that he is now building himself. This change did not escape the attention of netizens who quickly associated it with another name that is no less big: Park Jimin. Jimin, a best friend as well as a group member who has been known to be very close to Jungkook, is now the center of speculation. Many said that behind Jungkook's new attitude, there is a great influence from Jimin. Not even a few dare to say that Jimin is the figure who sets the direction of Jungkook's current steps. This accusation is certainly surprising, considering that their relationship has always been seen as one of the most sincere friendships in the entertainment industry. However, is it true that all this is about control? Or is this just an exaggerated interpretation of changes that are actually more complex? If you look at Jungkook's journey since his debut, he is not a strange figure with pressure. Since a very young age, he has been under the world's attention. His ever-increasing popularity makes his every move noticed, his every word is analyzed, and his every decision is questioned. In conditions like this, attitude change can be a form of adaptation, not manipulation. On the other hand, Jimin is always known as a figure who really cares about other members. He is not only a friend, but also often a place to lean on for Jungkook. In many old interviews, it is clear how Jimin gives strong emotional support, especially when Jungkook feels depressed. So, when now there is a narrative that Jimin manages everything, many parties actually see it as a form of protection, not control. Some fan analysts even argue that most likely Jimin is just giving advice to Jungkook to take better care of himself, both mentally and emotionally. The entertainment world is not always friendly, and sometimes taking a moment away from the spotlight is the wisest move. In this context, if there is really a direction from Jimin, then it could come from a deep concern, not a hidden ambition. However, in this fast-paced digital world, narratives often develop without control. Short video clips, facial expressions that are captured on camera, until a fleeting interaction can be easily twisted into evidence of a theory that is not necessarily true. Jungkook, who looks down, can be considered sad, even though he may just be tired. Jimin, who looks serious, can be considered dominant, even though he may only be focused. What makes the situation even more dramatic is how the fans are divided into two camps. Some believe that Jungkook is indeed experiencing great pressure and needs space. There are also those who believe that there is a deeper internal dynamic behind the scenes, something that has never really been revealed to the public. But one thing is for sure, the relationship between Jungkook and Jimin is not something that can be judged only from the moment. Their friendship has been tested by time, by pressure, and by a long journey full of challenges. They have gone through difficult times together, shared dreams, and supported each other when the world felt too heavy. The change that happened to Jungkook right now may not be a sign of a problem, but a sign of growth. Every individual, especially those living under the global spotlight, will inevitably experience a phase where they need to withdraw, evaluate themselves, and rediscover balance. And in the process, having someone like Jimin by their side can be a strength, not a weakness. In the midst of all the speculation, one big question remains. Do we really see what's happening, or just see what we want to believe? Jungkook may choose to remain silent, but his silence does not always mean that something is wrong. Sometimes silence is a way to survive. Sometimes staying away is a way to stay whole. And sometimes the figure who looks regulated is actually the figure who tries to protect the most. This story is not over yet, and maybe not all parts of this story are intended for the public to know. But what is clear, behind the spotlight, behind speculation, and behind all the drama that develops, there are real people with real feelings who are on their own journey. And maybe that's the only truth we really need to understand. But the story doesn't stop there. In fact, when the public spotlight is getting sharper, the change in Jungkook's attitude feels deeper, harder to ignore. Many began to pay attention to small details that were never considered important before. The way he answered the question became shorter, his gestures were more controlled, and his interaction with the camera felt like something he did because of obligation, not comfort. In the midst of all that, Park Jimin's name keeps appearing in various discussions. Some consider Jimin's presence by Jungkook's side as a support, as a figure that keeps Jungkook from falling deeper into invisible pressure. But on the other hand, there is also a darker narrative full of suspicion that it is possible that Jimin has too much influence, that their closeness has now turned into something more complex than just friendship. This narrative develops quickly, almost uncontrollably. Social media is filled with pieces of old videos that are revived, reanalyzed, and given new meanings. Every gaze, every pause in the conversation, even every moment of silence between the two is now considered as a code that must be solved, as if the public is trying to read a book whose pages are deliberately hidden. But behind all those theories, there is one thing that is often forgotten, that Jungkook is not only an idol but also a human being who has limits. Since he was a teenager, he has lived in a world that demands perfection endlessly. He grew up not in a free space, but on a stage that is always highlighted. And now, when he starts to show a more closed side, maybe it's not because he turned into a different person, but because he finally tries to be himself without the pressure to always look fine. Some observers even began to see this change as an important phase in his career journey. A phase in which it no longer just follows the flow, but begins to set its own limits. In a world that often takes more than it gives, stepping back can be the most real form of courage. In this context, Jimin's role can be much simpler than the public imagined. He may just be there, as a friend who understands without the need to explain, as someone who knows when to speak and when to be silent, as a figure who does not try to control but instead gives space. But of course, not everyone sees it that way. Some remain convinced that there is something hidden, something that they do not want to reveal. They see Jungkook's change as a signal, as a clue that there is an unstable internal dynamic. And in that narrative, Jimin is often placed as the center, as a figure who is considered to have a bigger role than it looks. This conflict of perception makes the situation more complicated. On the one hand, there is a desire to understand and protect. On the other hand, there is an urge to uncover and know more. And between those two forces, Jungkook is in the middle, becoming the subject of various interpretations that do not necessarily reflect reality. Interestingly, even though all these speculations continue to grow, there is no real confirmation from HYBE or other BTS members. This silence actually strengthens the mystery, making the public more curious, more eager to find answers from the small pieces available. But maybe it is in that silence that there is the most honest message, that not everything needs to be explained, that not all changes should be understood by others, and that sometimes keeping a distance from the outside world is the only way to stay in it. As time went by, one thing began to become clear, that whatever was happening, Jungkook did not face it alone. Whether as a friend, as a coworker, or just as someone who cares, Jimin is still around him. And maybe that's the only fact that can't be debated in the midst of all the drama, all the speculation, and all the theories that keep popping up. There is one question that is slowly starting to change. No longer what happened, but why do we want to know so much? Because in the end, this story is not only about Jungkook who stays away or Jimin who is said to be managing. This is about how the public sees, judges, and often concludes something without really knowing the whole thing. This is a reflection of a world that is thirsty for stories, even when the story is not finished writing. And maybe, behind all this, Jungkook is just doing one of the most humane things, looking for space to breathe.